We're going to stay here all night if we have to, so let's get started.
It's time, America, for the #1 conservative common sense podcast that's calling out all the social justice, political correctness crap and putting it on the run.
Do you think you can handle it?
So hop in and buckle up and get ready to ride with two straight-shooting, tell it like it is, ex-street cops.
And they know how to party with few inhibitions.
As they give the special interest and weak-kneed politicians a swift kick in the ass.
Wow, is that legal?
With some good old-fashioned common sense.
Bring it on, baby.
It's Cop Talk USA with your hosts, Murillo and French.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Roger French. I'm here with my partner, the big guy, Dave Murillo.
Hey, Raj, you all right?
I am, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing good. Watched a little football over the weekend and watched the college playoffs shape up a little bit there, and should be some exciting football.
Well, we saw our Hawkeyes fall flat on their face.
Yeah, that was bad.
well,
But, you know, Iowa State and Iowa, I'm still a fan of both. You know, they have their good days and bad days, but there's always tomorrow.
Well, that reminded me of like Stanford. Remember when they got run over out there by a truck? Oh, my God. It seemed the same way. Well, yeah, you know, my Cyclones, they didn't play. Basketball, they did. I was all excited about them. They are ranked. They moved up today to number 17 in the country for a team that was picked not to do anything, to be last. That guy up there is doing such a great job. Went out, saw Mike Moody and the Outlaws.
Good man. Good man.
He was. They were playing Friday night, so myself and a buddy went up and saw him up in there at the Whiskey House in Ankeny, and of course, you know, he's got his following up there. He got more women up there. I tell you,
he's dreamy.
Oh yeah, he's dreamy. Right. Tell you what I did do, and this is brutal. I don't know. So I decided I'm going to go. You know, I'm a single guy. I got this house and Christmas time, but I don't have quite as many, you know, Christmassy stuff, and my kids are going to come over. So I got this wild hair up my butt that I'm going to go out Sunday and go buy some decorations. Yeah. So I go up to Michael's. Have you been into this place?
I try not to go to those places, Roger. I know what they sell there, though.
Well, let me tell you something. Old Raj, you know, he's got his Iowa State hat on. He's big and bad. Going to roll in there and do it. Well, I got abused. I got abused in there. The grannies, all women, it's all grandmothers and kids. And I mean, they hit that place like SWAT. They come in there, bang, they hit it. They're going over. I'm going up to try to grab something, and man, I get blocked. I got more elbows thrown on me. I played hockey at one time. I got beat up more than there. I ended up having to leave there. I felt violated. I went home on the couch and cried. I mean, these grandmas, when you go to get something, they give you a look.
Grandma needs some too, Raj.
I'm going to tell you what, they may be grandma at home, but buddy, they turn into the Terminator when it comes to the Christmas crap, and that's what I call it.
Yeah, you know, what's the other one that the ladies love to frequent? Hobby Lobby.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm done going to those places.
Yeah, my wife and my daughter love those two stores, and you know, I just don't see the attraction because you know I'm a guy.
Well, I got news for you. I mean, they use those carts like weapons.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I got knocked over. I got an elbow thrown. I was reaching. She gives me the look. This granny. She gives me the look, and I was like, okay, I'm sorry. Go away. Yeah. So no more Michaels for me, and I'm sure it's a great. I
saw
place.
the wreath on your door, Roger. You're festive. You're festive.
Ho ho ho! And so anyway, we did that. Well, getting back to the law enforcement angle of this deal, obviously we had that shooting up in Michigan. That kid went in there and, you know, they charged his parents up there. He did that shooting up in Michigan at that school, and they charged the parents, and then everybody's making a big deal out of that. But you know what? If you're the parent and you're giving an unstable kid a gun and you're not paying attention, you're going against the grill. You know, they got points where the mom was texting him about getting caught, not getting caught and stuff. They should file charges on him.
You know what's weird to me, because I'm old. I admit it. I'm 64. I remember, you know, getting guns, if you will, when I was little from my parents. But they said Daisy on the side. Right. They were BB guns. But even then, my dad and my uncles taught me gun safety because that was kind of like training wheels, you know. But my parents, no parents I know of ever went out and bought their child a handgun. As they got older, they might migrate to a shotgun because they're hunting, you know. Right. But by that time, they've learned gun safety. and they're not going to use that gun for a nefarious purpose. So the fact that any parent would go out and buy some unstable child a handgun is just bizarre.
Well, and here's one of my deals about this. I also understand that they're now considering filing charges against schools. They had the kid, he had drawings. The school investigates. They call the parent in. Them and the parent decide. They want the parent actually to take the kid home. The parents refuse, say send him back to school. So somebody in the school decided, okay, well, he's probably not a threat. You know what's missing out of that equation?
What's that?
They didn't have an SRO there.
Yeah.
They didn't involve somebody from law enforcement to take back and to sit back and take a strategic look at this and say, hey, maybe we ought to check this kid's backpack. Maybe we ought to check his locker. Nobody thought to do that because that gun just didn't reappear.
Well, and what schools can do is school teachers and school administrators it's perfectly legal for them to search backpacks, lockers, whereas law enforcement, they can't talk to juveniles until the parents are there. Okay?
No, but from a strategic standpoint, if they would have included that person in there, if you had an SRO standing there, maybe that prevents that. I don't know, but when you have school teachers making decisions about stuff like that they're not trained to do, they feel sorry. They're worried about the child. Well, you better be worried about what that child can do is going to do.
You're right. You know what I dwell on? The parents of the kids who were killed, right, or the kids who are injured. I mean, it just breaks my heart to know this had to happen to innocent children. It's really bad.
Well, kids, and they got that kid. That one kid, he was a football player. He tried to stop it. Here's somebody a football player, an athlete, good kid in school. Everything he gets cut down by this nitwit.
Well, we have listeners up that way, so trust me when I tell you, Roger and I, we've got you in our thoughts and prayers over the holiday season and always. It's just terrible. Sticking
in that area, up there in Detroit, this happened the other day. They had a van. Detroit PD pulled over a van for a traffic violation, and it was a daycare-looking van and had 4 little kids in there. And they found out through their police investigative techniques and common sense and just intuition that something was wrong. The kids weren't acting right in the car. Found out she had kidnapped these 3 kids. She had got a van, had it outfitted to look like a daycare van, and pulled up these kids and said, "Get in, I'm taking you to school."
Yeah.
And they happened to stop it. So, thought to all the defund and cut police officers back. This is why you don't. Saved lives.
Yep.
Those officers did a hell of a job.
She's going to be enjoying three hots and a cot for a long time.
Well, Detroit needs to be really proud of those officers, and who knows what she had planned for those guys.
Yep.
I don't know.
You're right.
Another thing I saw, the border. And I just read this, just to throw this out there. Border Patrol in Rio Grande Valley sees 163% spike in illegal encounters since October.
How about that?
They're not slowing down a bit.
Nope. And another thing, too, you hear, Sleepy Joe and his sidekick and the left screaming for mask mandates across the country, and businesses have to have. Not one of them illegals coming in here is bound by that. They're coming in, and a lot of them are carrying COVID. Then you got this new strain of COVID. What's it called?
I don't know. Every week it's something.
Yeah.
The next week it'll be the Roger French strain or something. Makes your butt
feel
tight or something. I don't know.
And the hypocrisy and all this is, I don't know. I've never seen a president as incompetent as Joe Biden.
Well, it's just going. He's not doing it. The other thing, hey, I know something I'm sure you're following very closely, is your guy Smollett over in Chicago going through his trial. Yeah. What's his name? Jesse Smollett. He was on the stand today.
The fabricator.
Yeah. Well, now he's saying it absolutely did happen, and of course, he was in Trump country there in Chicago, and of course he's claiming that he's taking the stand, trying to convince people that all that was real, and the media's the ones to blame on that because they bought that.
Oh, they hook, line, and
sinker.
And if he would have said the boogeyman was after him, the mainstream left-wing media would have said, by golly, the boogeyman is Jason.
Oh, it's terrible.
Weird.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go into Bob, our fallen officer segment, will we? And I think, Dave, why don't you can read these.
Police officer Richard Houston II shot and killed while responding to a disturbance in the parking lot of a grocery store. He was with the Mesquite Police Department in Texas. Our condolences, prayers, thoughts go out to his family.
Right.
Constable Madison Skip Nicholson with the Wilcox County Constable's Office in Alabama. He was shot and killed while he and other sheriff's officer deputies responded to a domestic disturbance. That's one of the most dangerous calls the police officers make, folks, is domestic situations and traffic stops. That's where a lot of our officers are shot and killed or injured. Detective Antonio Valentin with the St. Louis County Police Department in Missouri. He was killed in a vehicle crash near the intersection of Chambers Road and Crete Drive about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Our condolences and prayers go out to his family and friends and relatives.
Who was he with?
He was with the St. Louis County Police Department.
St. Louis County, okay.
Police Officer Henry Laxon, Clayton County Police Department down in Georgia, shot and killed as he and other officers responded to a domestic violence and shooting in a 300 block of Jervis Court in Rex about 8:40 at night. And then we lost Sergeant Dominique Guida, Guida, I think is how they pronounce that. He suffered a fatal heart attack participating in a multi-agency exercise, and he was with the Bunnell Police Department down in Florida. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of these heroes who, made the supreme sacrifice since our last show.
Well, it's that heart takes out a lot of people. Medicals. That's just one of the things, and of course, suicide.
As a 34-and-a-half-year veteran, and I'm just as guilty of this as the next. If I could preach, one thing to my, brethren, whether they're active or retired, is keep your ticker strong. Exercise. Everybody likes to lift weights and look like a big macho man, chew tobacco, and get a tattoo. But what you really ought to do is make sure you keep your heart in good aerobic condition, because without a good ticker, everything else falls apart.
That's for sure. Okay, well, next, I think, Bob, we'll talk about this show. Today, we have a great guest on, Eddie Andrews. He's going to come and spend a lot of time with us. Mm-hmm. He's a representative, the Iowa House, District 39. You're going to really like our conversation, I think, with him. We've got some great questions to answer, and he's a real informative guy. I want to tell everybody, we're going to take a break for 2 weeks on the 27th and the 3rd of January, and we'll be back on the 8th. We've got 3 more shows till then. We've got next week, we have, who do we have coming on?
Chris Scott.
Chris Scott's
West Des Moines Police Chief. He'll be here.
He'll be here. John Quinn was going to be here today, but we're going to have him on again. He had something come up, so we'll get John on. And, of course, we've got some other great guests in the pipeline, so stay tuned to that. Next, I'm going to give us some shout-outs, just some folks. Dave, I don't know if you have any, but
I do. I've got a few. Linda Powers, she's a retired Des Moines police officer. Good old buddy of mine. He listens all the time. Rod Marquis, his late dad was a Des Moines police sergeant.
Sure.
Rodney the Deacon, I grew up with him. Just ain't going to find better people than him. One of our guests, John Shaver, listens all the time. Shout out to John. Just a lot of active and retired police officer friends of mine that listen, and a lot of WHO listeners tune in too. Because I think Maxwell Schaefer, he listens too. He's the host of the WHO morning show. I think he best described my style of radio conduct, Roger, when he said I'm acerbic.
I got a better word to describe you, but I can't say it on the air. Well, I can, but I won't.
Okay.
Well, I've got some guys, and I'm going to go down. These are people that just hit our Facebook, so I always try to get them. Kay Whedon, Brad Amos, Barbara Winston, Jason Spencer, Aaron Darr, Jerry O'Rourke, RD or Bob Clark. Mm-hmm. You know him, former officer. Scott Pope, Ben Thacker. Ben's been on our program. Robert Crow, I think you know him.
My brother-in-law, good man.
Yeah, that's right. He gives me scoops on you. Mm-hmm. Gerald Johnson, Doug Johnson, and, of course, the world traveler, Ron Brooks. Ron's the next officer. Yeah. I told Ron we have to get him on, but, he's all over the country. He's in Aruba. He's here. He's there.
He's kind of like you, Roger.
No, I don't travel like that. He met this gal, and I don't know. He's either traveling a lot or he's on the run. He's fleeing. I don't know what. He could be America's most wanted. I haven't checked to see on Ron, but I like him a lot. And he was a great officer.
Good guy.
He used to work traffic down there.
Yeah, he was a dandy.
Oh yeah, one of our deals. Well, next, I guess we'd be remorse if we didn't hit this.
And now it's time for
Asshats of the Week.
It's time.
Yes, it's true.
He's a real asshole. All right, David, fire away.
This is coming, Roger. This goofball, this nut job that people were buying hook, line, and sinker, his gas on the left side, Chris Cuomo from CNN.
Oh, yeah.
What a joke. Him and his brother. There's a couple of the most unstable doodahs I've ever seen in my life.
Couldn't happen to a better person. Couldn't happen.
I want you to remember these two jokers, folks. If you play in left field, because left field's full of people like this, and these two have done more to damage sections of this country than the law allows. So he's my asshat of the week, Chris Cuomo.
Dave, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to go with that county attorney out in L.A., George Gasson. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Gasson. He's the one that he's for criminal rights, no bond.
Yeah.
Put him back out on the street. They've got a police detective out there that's saying L.A. now is not even safe for tourists because of this guy.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're going to try to do a recount on him, get him recalled, and it's just I don't know where this guy comes from, except he's a Soros guy that Soros put money behind and got him elected.
Yeah, I used to get really pissed off about people like him, and then the more you think about it, they're voted into office by other jackasses who think just like them. So I kind of look past them now and look back at the voter base that put these jokers in office, like all the shoplifting and vandalism and smash and grab going on in San Francisco. San Franciscoans elected these idiots.
Yeah.
So, I feel sorry for the businesses, but hey, if you want meaningful change, don't elect jackasses like that to office.
Well, that's exactly right. They've got smash and grabs. Now they got to deal with these guys are following people home and force them into their house and doing robberies. You had a recall. You kept these guys in there. You kept Gavin in there. That knothead, and that's what you saw. So I kind of don't feel sorry for the people of California. Get it changed.
Yeah,
get it changed. And I guess I guess you have to get robbed before you think it is. But there's too many liberals out there, and
they just
that's why we call it the left coast.
You voted for it. Enjoy it.
That's the left coast.
That's right. The left coast.
The left coast. We have that's what we got.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I think next we've got to get into our guest. Dave, our guest today is someone from the House of Representatives of the state of Iowa. It goes by the name of Eddie Andrews.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is a good-looking dude, and he's working hard for the citizens of Iowa.
There you go, Eddie. Welcome.
Hey, thank you guys.
Man, I'm excited. Tell us about the House of Representatives, and you represent District 39. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that encompasses Johnston, Grimes,
Urbandale. As of right now, you guys know that redistricting is going on, and so we'll see what goes on real soon.
Well, explain that whole thing. What causes redistricting?
So the census, every 10 years, we have to reset each district so that each district is the same amount. So we've got 3.2 million people in Iowa.
Okay.
Divide that by 100 districts, and so we have to have roughly 32,000 people per district. And so my district had grown so much that they had to take
a little away from you.
Take a little bit out.
Okay. Well, I take it there's 100 representatives.
Yes, sir.
In the House.
And 50 senators.
And now, is that a full-time job? That's a full-time thing?
They lied to me because they said something about off session. And
yeah.
They tell you that.
And I have been just as busy. I mean, it starts at 7 and it goes until. And I think, what I think it is when people understand that you listen to them.
Right.
They don't care what district you are in. Hey, Eddie, call Eddie. He will get stuff done.
You talk their language, they're going to listen.
And they will tell their friends.
Common sense.
Yep.
Common sense, conservative values sell in this state, I think. How long have you been doing it?
Long time. I mean, all of 11 months. I mean, this is that was a joke. That was my attempt.
Okay.
Wow.
I was gonna say,
They were wondering. You should have seen their eyes, guys. Like, wait a minute, a long time. 10
Sometimes
months.
we get a little confused on this program. It happens.
Roger does. I'm okay.
Yeah. So, what kind of legislation is going on up there these days? Any pro law enforcement stuff?
A lot. As a matter of fact, today, speaking of both off session and law enforcement, I was on the Brady Giglio subcommittee meeting today. Well,
Okay.
not subcommittee. What do we call that? It's a task force or something.
Task force. Explain to our listeners what that is, what the Brady Giglio
Oh
is.
boy. It really starts from 1963 case Brady versus Maryland. And what that is if you are a defendant and the prosecution finds out evidence,
Right.
even if it can hurt their case, right? They have to make that available to the defense. And so then the Giglio thing came a few years later, and the problem with all the subsequent, so some of the subsequent rulings is that you now have law enforcement people who are on this quote unquote Brady list or Giglio list.
Yes.
And they don't always know they're on this list. And they're on this list because a prosecutor doesn't think that their testimony is valid, or they may have done something in the past. It may be, could be some,
a little negative history.
yeah, it could be anything. You know, you showed up late for work and you put 8:30 down instead of 8:15, and you know, something like that. And now your testimony is now questionable.
So you can be on this list and not even be convicted of a crime.
Well, yeah, most people, I don't think. Well, first of all, if you're convicted of a crime and still in law enforcement,
Right.
you're probably not.
Because I know they have a list of officers, old officers that have done that. But
Right.
this is just something negative that's gone on. They build this list. Boy, that doesn't sound very good.
So you end up with all these officers who, and sometimes they don't know that they're on it until they go to a next job. They're now in Eastern Iowa. They go move to West Des Moines or something like that, and then all of a sudden you have a contact and, oh, I'm sorry, we can't hire you. You're on this list.
Or it comes up in a court case. Some defendant's attorney gets this and starts trying to discredit an officer's testimony with that. I could see that going on.
We actually had a police chief there today who testified that he was asked by a local paper in, I believe, was it 2019, if he could provide the list, his Brady list and he said, we don't have one. There's no such thing. And they did their investigation and came back to him and said, well, I guess we do have something. And so he had to kind of backtrack and said, well, I guess we do. And he, to his credit, had the back of his officer and
Was able to find out and disseminate the right information.
Yeah.
Is this current law that's being enacted, or is it active now, right now, going on? Or
It's active now. So what we did now in our previous legislation session, it's really complicated. And even today we had prosecuting attorneys, we had the defense attorneys, we had the county attorneys, we had the police chiefs, we even had the fire officers represented. And this was all day. And it's clear that this is a heavy topic. You've got constitutional issues, you've got privacy issues. So what we did is we passed something. It's like a giveaway. So we passed this current session that you can't fire anybody if they're on this list for 1 year.
Okay.
And the idea was, hey, let's figure this thing out. We'll get back to everybody. But in the meantime, you can't do anything until July 1.
Is this voted, I guess, down party lines, or is it, pretty much, or is it all over the board? Who's pushing it and who's against it? I
So
guess?
I'm not sure. Voting it's not really voted on
Okay.
right now. What we're trying to do is create a solution. So the Constitution tells us, and the courts have stated from the Constitution that in that Brady case and then the Giglio case, I'm sorry to get deep in the weeds here, but
That's okay.
it's designated that we have to err on the side of disclosure.
Okay.
So like if an officer's done something, or let's just say it's a racial issue, and you discover that this guy's got like 75 posts online that are racist or something like that.
Right.
Well, that might be relevant to the case. It may not be, but it may be. And so they typically err on the side of caution and disclosure.
Who makes that decision? Who goes on?
Prosecutor.
So a prosecutor in an individual county can say, I'm going to put Dave Murillo on this list.
Right. And the way, from their standpoint, keep in mind there's lots of viewpoints, but from their standpoint, if they try a case and they don't disclose something, and then the defense attorney says, wait a minute, you didn't tell us about this. This could have helped our case. Like, you had this evidence and you hid it. So therefore, let's take this whole case down.
Dave, do you see anything union being able to control this or get involved in something like this?
Not real. No, not really. I
This-
don't. I
this-
mean, right now. Well, one thing that happened a few years ago that I wasn't a big fan of, even though I have a Republican legislator sitting here, was when they diluted Chapter 20 collective bargaining laws. They so removed public employees from being able to bargain for much of anything, and even law enforcement. They're still required to recertify their union, even though that shouldn't have happened. And a Republican governor, Bob Ray's the one that enacted Chapter 20 back in '74, so public employees couldn't strike. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
see what he's talking about being in a real
I
equation.
don't. I guess I'm trying to put myself in a position here. What would drive a prosecutor to do that? Because usually they have pretty good relationships with police departments. I mean, I would think it would have to be something egregious to say I'm going to put you on this list. 'Cause
Well-
I
Maybe, but before I even say anything, you mentioned the Republican legislature. I just have to say I was not here when that happened. So
and I was deeply involved in Chapter 20 matters for the Des Moines Police Department for 6-7 years, and nobody gets rich, in collective bargaining. It's usually a cost of living raise that's gobbled up by the rising cost of health insurance and the consumer price index. So, the fact that somebody thought we were becoming rich because we were able to come to the table and bargain for basic, insurance and salary raises and things like that, that's just not true. But be that as it may, I am a proud, registered Republican. I just wasn't in agreement, lockstep with my party on that one.
This bill, again, it sounds like it's there, it's active. There's people. I take it the public can probably go right online and see who these officers are and see what their allegations are.
That's part of the issue, because a lot of the quote unquote list, if you will, is private information.
Okay.
It may be in your HR records. Well, you don't want that public.
So the only way that it does anybody any good would be in a court case.
Right.
An attorney can go get that. But I'm just wondering, if do the departments know who's on it? Do they have records?
Typically not. I mean,
If I'm the chief of Des Moines, for instance, and I want to see what officers are on there from my department, can I find that out?
I assume so now. But keep in mind, like I gave the example earlier, this police chief Stallman from the city of Altoona, when he got there, he actually said he was asked if he had any people on that list. He said no. He went through the records. There was nothing.
Caught him by surprise a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, those officers, and we've got other issues or other stories of officers. One officer, there's a report where he wrote down, it was a drug case, and one of the people put some drugs in their shorts, and he wrote trousers, and therefore he's on this list as being potentially discredit any testimony that he gives because he didn't tell the full truth or something.
He used
like
the
that.
word trousers instead of shorts.
And they thought that was egregious enough.
This list sounds to me like a blacklist, if you will, where you could get blacklisted real easy. I don't like this. I don't.
There's all sorts of things in government, Roger, that need to be.
I mean, there's
tuned
things.
up.
Believe me, when we were on the department,
Yeah.
I bet we'd be on that list. I'd be leading the charge probably for saying things or doing something
So-
inappropriate.
But we're trying to look at it where the constitutional requirement of disclosure is still there, but
Right.
that there's transparency enough so that the person knows they're on this list and gives them an opportunity to defend themselves, right?
That's exactly what should happen.
And just kind of have that discussion up front rather than find out 6 years later when you're trying to move and move to another district and you realize you're on this list. And can't get hired.
It's still, I take it, being talked about and gone back and forth, or are you comfortable where it's at now? Or
We spent all day
going over it.
Yes, and listening to different groups explain their point of view, and we had lots of lively discussion and ideas brought out, and that's always wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't fully arrive at a solution, but we did arrive on that there needs to be uniformity and that there needs to be transparency and a way for officers to know that they're on this list, and then have some ability to appeal this.
I would think there'd be some kind of guidelines or something. Here are the things that are going to get you on this list, and here's what's not. Without that, who knows? I mean, what is misspelling going to get me on that list? Because let me tell you something. If that's the deal, you know me, Dave. I'm going to be all over that. You're going to go.
And I got a subject here I want to get your opinions on. And I don't care if you're left, right, moderate, conservative, whatever.
Okay.
Politics, regardless of which party you're talking about, seems to me to be the driving negative factor in so many issues versus getting down to the people's business. We spend all this partisan arguing, and everybody gets kind of lost. I don't care what the issue is. You see it locally, you see it nationally. How do we navigate to get government back to core services, basic services, and get the petty politics out of government? I mean, I'm all for that, but I want to get your opinion on that.
Well, what I try to do is listen to everyone, like everybody. That means when I talk to people on the street, when I talk to people at the Capitol building, wherever I'm at, I talk to everyone. Number two, talk about issues rather than politics. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
We have a wonderful police chief. And I was telling someone today about our police chief, Chief McDaniel in Johnson. And someone asked, well, is he a Republican or Democrat? You know what? I don't know because I didn't ask.
As long as he does good law enforcement.
And when he comes down to the Capitol, he's the most prepared guy there. I mean, he's awesome. Cares about policy. He cares about the law. When he comes down there with papers and he knows the history of particular laws. And when he texted me today during the Brady Giglio meeting and said, hey, I'm watching it online. Great questions you're asking. He's a great guy who knows his stuff, but do I know what politics he is? Don't know.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. He's there to do the people's work in a law enforcement capacity. We all have political opinions, and we all lean one way or another, but just basic government core services, politics should never enter into that equation, and unfortunately it does.
It does, but I think you get around it by not talking about it sometimes. I mean, I am a Republican, so therefore I've made a choice about what, some of my core beliefs, right?
Sure.
But my wife is not, and she's a very public figure. Yes, and there's some things we disagree with and a few things that we agree on, and you know what? We just don't talk about those things, right? Or
you're able to have an amicable,
or you agree. You
Right.
can agree to disagree, and you don't have a vendetta to grind with each other, or it creates hard feelings. You just you have your opinion, I have mine, and let's get on down the road.
Sure, and
or you're sleeping on the couch.
done that too. So hey, we live in the real world.
I've got friends that are from those kind of family. I've got friends that are friends that are liberal, left kind of people, and you just. But you don't make it personal.
And you know what? I used to be a Democrat, so I don't think that Democrats are evil. I think they're, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but we have different ways of approaching things.
Sure.
And you have to have that open discussion before you can actually get the ball moving forward, right?
We talk a lot about this on this program, about Blue Dog Democrats. Our position is we're law enforcement, pro common sense. And that's not necessarily divided down party lines.
No,
am I right, Dave?
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, for example, the police department, Des Moines Police Department associations and unions supported Claire Celsey when she ran for office. She's so left of center, it's unbelievable. But we get along with her. We can talk to her. We can agree to disagree. She's a very nice lady. Do I agree with a lot of her positions? No. But going back to what we were talking about just a minute ago, we get along. I mean, she is, pro law enforcement, and she works hard to protect our benefits. On the social issues, we couldn't be further apart, but we do get along.
Well, and you have our local sheriff here in Polk County. He's a Democrat, but
Great guy though.
yeah, and very pro law enforcement. Kevin Snyder, and it when it comes to common sense, when it comes to law enforcement, now you want to talk about defunding the police and the BLM movement and all that. I'm totally against that. Everything. I think it's proven that hasn't worked in a lot of these places that they've defunded. They're now trying to refund, and we see that daily. Matter of fact, by the way, did you see that? Not to change subject, you see that police chief up in Minneapolis is resigning.
Yeah, it surprised me.
In January, and this is a guy. He was a good man. I think he's the first black chief they've had up there, and a great fit for that city and cared. And they've run him off.
Yeah,
and they've done that. And I don't care whether he's black or white. They run off good people.
Yeah,
and I don't know, Eddie. Do you see much of that kind of? And that's kind of died down. That BLM black defund the police talk up there.
I see a lot of. I still see remnants of that. And interestingly enough, President Obama has kind of come down on that movement and said, guys, you need to change your tactics. And the most interesting thing in the world is seeing him get hit from the left. and
I don't know if that's even the left. That those people are so extreme. I don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
Radicals.
I don't think they're Democrat. I don't know what they are. They're anarchists.
But it's kind of to your point earlier when you said you have to have a dialogue and I think what President Obama's point was on that was, look, defund the police, you're losing half your audience the instant that comes out of your mouth.
Exactly.
There's no way that anybody's listening to you at that point. If you have a point that you want discussed, then discuss that point rather than
taking money
losing
away from taking money away from law enforcement doesn't benefit anybody except maybe the criminals. That's who it helps, and
because they're so law-abiding.
That's right. If you want to, refund, give them more money, train people more. If you don't like the outcome that officers are doing, train them more, give them better training, give them better equipment, give them better tools. Don't take them away.
We need our law enforcement.
You got to have it, and without that, we're just seeing how well that's working.
Ed, I was in government for 34 and a half years, and I was very, very active in politics and the issues, collective bargaining, pension matters, things like that. And it seems to me that various sections of the code need to be revisited sometimes because sometimes they're antiquated, they've outlived their usefulness. They're not doing now what they were intended to do. Sometimes I feel like Chapter 400 needs to be revisited. Civil service. When a police department, a police chief can't hire who they want because those individuals didn't meet the litmus test of the Civil Service Commission, which certifies hiring lists for police departments. That's a problem. I trust Dana Wingert and John Quinn, and I trust Chris Scott to know who they would like to hire, but to send a group of applicants there that's going to get a 5-minute listen to by somebody who's not in law enforcement and then return that list back to the police department. That's who we think. That's where things can get skewed, and I've seen that happen.
Okay. Well, now that you mentioned that, I'm going to check that out as soon as we get off the air and start reviewing that and see if I have any ideas with your ideas, and maybe we can get that changed.
And nothing too that bothers me is that we're losing a lot of good, high quality police applicants simply because in their past they did some things. I'm talking about felonious things. I'm talking about a kid in college who used cocaine. That was in college.
He experimented.
Put a stipulation there that if he does that again, he's fired. But when 80% of your college kids have snorted some cocaine, then you've only got 20% of applicants who are going to be able to be hired. And sometimes you end up hiring educated idiots because they're squeaky clean, but they don't have any common sense. I mean, those are things that I think law enforcement, locally and nationally, they need to start re-looking that via their legislative bodies too.
And you can also throw in things like pay.
Yes.
We actually did. That's one thing we were able to get accomplished this past session because the the gap of pay from some police chiefs and some sheriffs was so high or was so wide that it needed to really be addressed. And there was actually one police chief, I won't say the town,
Yeah.
and he resigned and came and moved to I believe a Des Moines deputy sheriff,
Okay.
so he could make more money.
Okay.
And I'm
yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
We have to do something about that. And so we actually we passed the first step. And so that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Great. Well, and then I have some things I want to run by you off air too, that I think would go a long ways in helping the citizens of this state get more bang for their tax buck.
Okay.
I mean, there's just we need to do some things differently. The last thing I'm going to ask you, and I don't know there's a whole lot we can do about this, as an African American man talking to a Hispanic man here, because of the demographics in the state of Iowa, how do we ever, I don't care what level of government you're talking about, state, county, federal, whatever, how do we ever get more people of color into actual, I can make a decision positions in government? That drives me batty. You see, the police chiefs by and large are white. Nothing against whites. The city managers are white. I mean, I'd like to see more color in government, but it's got to be competent. I don't want to put somebody in who's
you want to promote people because of their abilities. I think that's our thing. Not because of your skin color, because your building quality, your character, those kind of things.
Yeah. I just think you start young. I mean, it's not a let's turn the switch on and it happens. You start young and you engage people at their earliest, and you make sure that every student knows that they can do anything, and you put that confidence in them, and they don't know they can't do it because no one's told them they can't.
One thing the Des Moines school district's doing that I like is that they get into the blue collar trades,
Yes.
welders and auto body and farming and things like that. I think too that if our legislature would make some mandates that all school districts have to talk early about all the basic careers and the salaries and benefits that coincide with that, it would start being ingrained into children that, hey, if I want to be a cop, I can't be involved in shoplifting. I can't be doing this or that. If I want to be a farmer, I need to save money to get a loan to be a farmer.
Take these classes.
Yes, exactly. I think we kind of dropped the ball like that.
I agree with everything you said, and I also personally I've started a group called Mentoromics where we teach kids how to code. That's my real job.
Okay.
And so Des Moines Public Schools has actually called us a couple of times to figure out why that the kids that go into this program end up being they improve their grades, even though it's not an academic program. But
Sure.
we do it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So when these kids get done with this program, that they have an app in the App Store or the Google Play Store or an Alexa skill, and it's theirs. They can show their friends, and now they want to know how I can do this better. How they want it, so they see the benefit of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, we've been working. Me personally, I've been trying to work with our trade unions.
Sure.
The carpenters, and we actually have a facility in Pleasant Hill, I want to say. And then we also have another training center in Grimes.
Yeah. Well, you can make some good money in the trades.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're talking $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 to be a tinner, be a good, diesel mechanic,
electrician,
plumber. I mean, a lot of people just don't like school much, but they do like learning a craft or a trade.
Yes, all the above education.
Now, Eddie, I see you're on the Commerce Committee. You're on the Human Resources, Public Safety, Veterans Affairs.
Yes.
Health and Human Services, Vice Chair.
Yes.
What kind of things are you doing there?
So, wow, that's a lot.
That's a big deal. Is there anything big issue right now?
So the biggest passion that I've had and what made me run, I mean, there are lots of things that I am excited to run on and to talk about and to implement, but what made me run was mental health.
Okay.
And
yes, that's huge.
So if you guys are in law enforcement, you know, the the new asylum is the jails. I mean, because a lot of people, we don't know how to deal with them. We don't have enough beds. We don't have enough shelters. We experienced that in our own family, where the waiting times are horrendous. When my son was here, he when he would have an episode, he wasn't. You couldn't keep him in the house because he'd be beaten up. You know what I mean? That,
and
that was a mental issue.
And the only people they call out is law enforcement.
And
The cops,
exactly. And so we didn't want to call law enforcement. You know, people don't always like, hey, my kid's, he lives here.
Because sometimes those things don't turn out the way you think they're going to turn out.
Exactly. And so you start looking for shelters. What about tonight? And then you realize there's not enough shelters. You would go to Ames, you go to Cedar Rapids, and you know, we have to fix the system. And so that's been my biggest focus.
And that's huge. Law enforcement and education will back you 150% in more mental health services and funding.
Or support services. Give them another tool in their belt.
It's a huge problem, Roger. I mean, Ed knows this.
Well,
it's huge.
Laura, our candidate, she was talking about that's a big function that she's looking at is how do we do this? How do we take some pressure off law enforcement? How do we give them some support for mental health people? You know, we go out on a trip and we've got a person there that's having an issue that we can get them in and maybe get them some help. But I think they have some of those services now, but try to expand.
And in that capacity, mentorship is huge.
Yes.
You know, I have gone into classrooms before, and there's been Hispanic kids who are out of control. They're escalated. And I'll look at them and I'll say, hey, I said, venga aquí. You know, they'll walk right up. You know, I said, siéntese. ¿Qué pasa? They'll start talking, and they're doing it because they respect me. They understand the lingo. They know somebody's there who's not going to take their BS. That's huge in the Latino community. But there's not a lot of mentorships going on from the African American community or the Hispanic community. We need to get more people of color mentors involved across the board in education.
You know, my little program is called Mentoromics, and that's one of the reasons why is we need to address all students, but typically the young males.
Yes.
And we have to make sure that they have the opportunities and that they see people who aren't, like you said, aren't going to take their mess, and who they respect, and you can lead.
And they need discipline and structure.
Everybody does, right?
You know, you can't run feral and expect to not end up in jail or hang out with the wrong crowd. They need discipline, structure. They need to be taught respect. You know, they respect authority.
Sometimes they're not getting that at home.
They're not,
and so you know
that's huge. Though I'm glad to hear you say that. That's huge right now. You know, Polk County's mobile crisis does fantastic work.
Yes, and now that was one of the things I talked about when I was running. Now that mobile crisis is available to kids, at one point it was only available for adults, which is I thought was I was just not available to everyone. So
yeah.
Eddie, tell me a little bit about Eddie. Tell us, aside from politics, tell us a little bit about you.
So I love life. I love people.
Great.
I've always been in service some sort of way. Whether that I grew up in a house of where my dad was a minister. Our whole family's kind of involved in church or ministry. And I thought that everybody did public service because that's what our family did. We, you know, whether or not it was connected to the church or not, we always, you know, neighborhood cleanups, visiting the seniors, doing lawn care for people who can get out. You know, that was our family. We just did that. I didn't know any better. And so when I grew up, my training is electrical and computer engineering. Did a little bit of grad work in engineering management and got a couple of religious pieces of paper, and worked for the power company, and then started my own business, just writing software for people.
Right.
So I've always had public service, and so once I got half my feet settled under me, I started Des Moines Spanish Conversation Group. It's still going on about, I want to say it's almost 2 decades old now.
You probably know Joe Gonzalez real well.
Claro que sí,
Latino. Yeah.
Now you're a minister too, right?
Yes, I am.
And tell us about that.
So bilingual minister. So in our English church, I'm a lay minister. And also I co-pastored our Hispanic church, I think officially maybe 8 or 9 years. I'm still involved in it. I've been retiring for like ever. And they keep forgetting that I retired and say, hey, we need you next Sunday.
Bring you back.
You're in demand. I've been in politics probably ever since my 5th or 6th year on the police department, endorsing candidates, working for candidates. It's just kind of, been a hobby of mine, if you will. And you get a sense, you get a feeling for politicians. I don't care what denomination they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you, and just in the short time I've talked to you, I'm going to tell you, you are future gubernatorial material here in the state of Iowa. I'm serious. You're sharp. You're a leader. You're well-spoken. You're up on the issues. You're articulate. And that's who Iowans migrate to. So if you ever decide to run for governor, you give Vol Murillo a call here.
You give us
I'm telling you, you're the man for the job. You could do it. You would do well as governor of the state of Iowa.
Well,
wow.
Okay. Thank you. We get a lot of people on this program, and we had Nicole Hassel on here, and we had
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's been on a couple of times, I think.
Yeah.
And we love her to death. I was she just joined me up the basketball. Her and her son, I took them up to Iowa State for the basketball tournament. And she came up there, and politics is
the police community, the police family would love you. I mean, the more of them that know you, a lot of them don't know who you are. I'm telling you, I'm tight with that group of people. They would migrate to you in a heartbeat.
Wow.
I mean, that's just the honest truth.
And I know we talked about this. You're going to maybe or maybe not come up for election. We don't know.
We'll know together in about a week.
Well, when you find that out, we need to know that. You can text me or let me know, and we'll get you back on here because we'll do everything we can to support you.
Oh, I see how that works.
And
if I announce separately, then I come back.
That's right.
That's cool.
And, I'm one of these guys, Ed, who puts his money where his mouth is. If you decide to run for re-election, you get a hold of me and I'll crank you a check for your re-election.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what I'll do.
Well, thank you. Wow.
I'll make sure you got a couple courtside seats up for Iowa State.
Wow.
Are you a basketball fan?
You know what? I used to want to play basketball, and then I stopped growing. So,
well, I'm a fan up there and supporter, and
thank you guys.
I'll tell you something about this joker sitting across from me.
Uh-oh.
His dad was phenomenally successful in business, the late Rod French. But what I really admired about this guy here and his dad was, as successful as they were and are so generous. Iowa State University is a better place because of his dad and Connie French. And Roger's generous. I mean, the guys are just top notch.
Wow.
Awesome. That's always impressed
David.
me. Yeah.
My dad and our family appreciates that.
Rod was a good man.
He was. I still want to tell you, hey, how
that
about me?
But doesn't that make you feel good, though, that you've got parents that people respect? I mean, that's amazing.
My father always felt that he supported athletics, but he supported education a little more. So that's when he donated for the athletic academic center up there.
Oh my! Wow.
So the Rod County French Athletic Academics. So all those students, because he knew, you just can't run people through their athletic. They've got to have a bit of education they got to do, and he's been a fairly good supporter up there.
Wow.
Whenever Rod French called me at the police department, here's my best Rod French impression. This is always the way,
I won't tell you what he called when I got his calls.
Here's what I say: "What are you doing, big guy? What are you doing, big guy?" Yeah, Rod, what do you need? And whatever Rod needed, Rod got, because Rod was just a peach of a guy.
Well, he did, and he supported law enforcement. He made a donation. He gave Des Moines. He got them started on their body cameras.
Yeah,
made a large support.
Okay,
and
nice.
He was the initial investment or donation that bought everybody body cameras down there. He did that for them in Waukee.
Get that going, yeah.
So support law enforcement. So all kind of the same things that we support here, and like Dave said, kind of circling back. You support a lot of these same things, and with that, we'll support you all we can.
We're fans now. We're
wow. Thank you guys.
Hey, Roger, tres amigos.
Okay, whatever. I don't speak. Don't be getting me to speak. Bobby's getting me again, isn't he? I don't even know what he's saying. He won't lie. He'll tell me the truth. I may have to call you and get
he's
some.
3 friends.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
good.
anyway, Eddie, I want to thank you for coming on.
My
Yes.
pleasure.
Yeah.
My
We-
pleasure.
Really
It seems
enjoyed
like,
this.
man, time's just blown by, but
Really
we
enjoyed this.
want to get you back on, and certainly when you make that announcement, then I want you back on here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good man. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you, guys.
sir. All right.
Pleasure's mine.
Well, Dave, I couldn't be more excited about today's show. I thought it was great.
Oh no, you know.
How
that-
impressed were you with Eddie?
Oh man, I'm telling you, folks, this guy's got a future in politics. I'm just telling you, as a political guru, this guy's got a future.
Well, what I'll tell our listeners is stay tuned because we're going to have him back on the show because I think he'll have an announcement for us. I just feel that. But good show.
Yep.
You know, I want everybody to remember, vote your conscience. Be sure use common sense and support law enforcement always.
Always. Talk to you later, Roger.
All right, Dave. Thank
All right,
you, buddy.
See ya.
You've been listening to Cop Talk USA with your hosts, Murillo and French.